So, welcome to today's podcast, Tom Barbers podcast. We've got Adam. Adam's a local entrepreneur, franchise owner, and it also has took the plunge and he's got a central location for his dessert business. Over to you. Do you want to explain who you are and what you do and what your business does?
Yeah, sure. So first, thanks for having me here, Tom. It's a real pleasure to be involved in this project we got on. I'm Adam. I own a business called Sinple Treats. That's with an N, not to get confused with Simple Treats, which often happens. It's a dessert brand, which is all about giving people a great dessert when they want it. Whether that's in store or delivered to their door, we basically pride ourselves on giving people, good quality food, good portions, and a great time. So that's what we pride ourselves on. We've got 2 locations in Lincoln and in Doncaster, and obviously looking to grow that. Been doing it for 6 years now, and that's pretty me. That's me, my business world in a nutshell. I'm looking forward to the questions and going a bit deeper today.
Yeah, so obviously, I remember the first time you came and you had this big afro-y hair. But obviously, it was pre the dessert business. So what was you doing before you got into it? Mm-hmm. And what made you take the plunge?
So I was at a big corporate job. So it was a company called RS Components, which is a FTSE 250 company now. So yeah.
So they've dropped out because you've left?
No. Obviously, it was the big fall for them. But yeah, I was in a sales role, so I was there for 3-4 years. Basically, was an area sales manager, and it was great company, great place to, great people, learned a lot. But basically, at the end of the day, you're just a piece of their puzzle, really, which isn't very fulfilling, I don't think, anymore. Great money, company car, all the jazz, but yeah, it wasn't really fulfilling myself. So I took the plunge, left a really well-paying job, all with security, and decided to sell brownies for a living. So it was a big decision, but I'm very, very glad I made it.
So obviously what was quite interesting, obviously you took on a franchise first, I believe.
So I was a franchisee originally. Yeah. So very simple. I bought into a brand, a business model, and an operating system of how to run a business. So it didn't exactly, I haven't run a business before. I was 29 at the time. So it was, all very, very new to me. But I was a good friend who I worked with at RS, basically. He was there in a similar role to myself, and he left to start this small bakery business selling basically brownies through Facebook to people in Corby, which is obviously where this business initially started, which is a small town in Northampton. And basically, I saw how quickly he was able to generate cash and sort of work for himself, really. I quite liked the idea of it. So he was franchising the model out, and I was really keen to bring it to Lincoln. I've only been here for about a couple of years myself at this time. And I've sort of kept in touch with him. And I saw it as a big gap in the market. You go to a place like Manchester, Leicester, some of the bigger cities, and you can see there's, dessert delivery, dessert restaurants was quite a big thing, especially because of the culture. But in Lincoln, literally, I think at the time, other than sort of Casper's, there wasn't really much offer. No one was really doing it, especially where we initially set up our location, which was in a little industrial estate just off Domton Road, technically North Highcombe. So we had like thousands and thousands of households who weren't really getting any trade from the city centre. And this was a time when Just Eat, Uber, Deliveroo, all those sort of players, this was 2019, so just for the pandemic actually, they wasn't really what they are today. Very, very much, growing and working out where they were going to take their business models. And I remember back then you'd go on Just Eat and there was like 40, 50 restaurants, and now you've got sort of 250, 300. So we came in at a time when, especially with the pandemic, you couldn't go to restaurants, you couldn't go to pubs, but people were getting money chopped down through furlough, and our business just went crazy. Like we started with, turnover, I don't know, we was probably doing 50 orders a month. It was sort of quite slow when we first started doing. Then we was doing, nearly 10 times that when at the heart of the pandemic. So it was absolutely fantastic. And that really put us on the map, you know. So from sort of humble beginnings, a little industrial estate, we've now taken the plunge and moved to the city centre.
There's so many things that I want to touch upon, but I think we'll go with that. So obviously the move to town, absolutely big plunge. So what was the pros and cons of that? Was it a straightforward decision, or is it something you battled with?
Oh yeah, I battled with for like a year. Like I was really, because this was like 2023, and obviously it was like the height of inflation. You know, from a business perspective, we were growing every year, but we started to, well, the growth was still there, but it was just being eaten up by costs in terms of labour for staff, in terms of, you know, the cost of food and utilities, and because we're big on delivery, fuel for one, that was other things. All these costs were rising, and we were just like, Christ, we can stay here and be comfortable, or we can be uncomfortable and make a move into the city centre. Because, you know, at this point, COVID was over. You know, restaurants were open, people were out and wanted to socialise again, or be allowed to socialise again. So there was definitely opportunity there, and I think to start a business at that point from scratch would have been very, very difficult, because funding was hard to come by, interest rates were mega high. But to relocate was an exciting proposition, and I basically had to find the perfect location, which doesn't actually exist, to be honest with you, but we found a very, very good location. And yeah, we made the decision. But again, it took me a good year just to really commit to it, because, you know, bigger rents, bigger rates, more staff, more overheads, basically. You know, there's always that fear factor. But yeah, I'm a big believer in you've got to go for it and not hold back, really.
So do you still have the secondary? Is that still open, or is it just? It
is and no. So I was going to keep both stores, but I decided, again, because of costs and staff and just, I think, for my own sanity, really, because again, I'm a firm believer of like working on it, not in it. So spending your time marketing, growing your business, seeking opportunities, innovating, all that kind of fun stuff is where an owner of a business should be. They should be stood behind, in my world, in a counter, selling desserts. You know, I think they should have a presence there, absolutely. But I think to really grow a business into something that you can sell one day, I think they need to be like the franchisee model. They need to be working on their business and being as effective as possible, really. So I made a decision to not keep the other store and put all our eggs in one basket, and it was definitely the best decision. Again, just with rising costs, it was, you know, let's prioritise this location, less stress, and it meant that I could then focus my full attention on growing the business rather than just putting out fires and operating it.
So what does an average week, because obviously, like you say, you've gone arguably probably a different direction to me, so you out the business working on it. Obviously I'm in it, chopping hair. So what does an average week look like for Adam?
So over if you'd asked me this question a year ago, it'd been very much the opposite. I was in it all the time, 70, 80 hours a week, really, you know, just getting the processes right, getting the staff in place, because our operating procedure completely changed. And when you relocate a business, it's probably harder than opening a brand new store, because you've still got to keep your cash flow coming in, you've still got to pay your staff members, you've got all your problems in terms of moving equipment and making sure everything's set up correctly. So you've got all that to do, as well as just keeping the big wheel turning. As an old man used to say to me, you've got to keep the big wheel turning. You've still got to pay your staff, you've got to pay your bills and stuff like that. So, and you've got to keep your customers obviously happy. That's a big thing. So an average week for me now, basically the last sort of 3-4 months, I've had to really come out of the business, because the process are really good. We've nailed down operating how it should be to maximise profitability and customers like retention. I'm now probably in the store on a Monday and a Friday, sometimes just one of those days, and it's like a 10 till 4 probably. So that sounds really, really cushy, and it is, I'm not gonna lie, it is nice. However, when I'm in there, I'm in there sort of thing. So I'm literally an employee. That's the way I see it. So I'm there doing the prep, doing the bake, interact with customers. And I really do enjoy that side of it as well, because a lot of the things like from COVID, like working from home or from an office, you know, in town or wherever, somewhere remotely, can get quite lonely. I think that's a big thing about being a business owner is quite lonely at the top because you've got to make all the decisions. I made the decision not to have a business partner because I didn't want any complications later on down the line. I wanted to, rightly or wrongly, make that decision myself and be accountable for everything I choose to do. So I think I'm really bad at diverting. I'm really, very bad at rabbit holing. But yeah, my day-to-day now looks like I'll be in the shop 1 day a week, and then I would say 2 other days of the week I'm probably doing VAT returns and administration jobs, which I'm trying to sack myself from them roles, doing bookkeeping and stuff like that, which is, it's important to keep a hand on the cost of business at the moment because it is very, very challenging. But I do want to look eventually for an assistant or someone to take that stuff off me because it is very, very time consuming. And it's definitely technology out there that can help reduce that burden. So I am definitely trying to sack myself from the administration, the payroll, the finance, all that kind of stuff. And then the rest of the time is spent looking for opportunities. So going to meet other business owners, talk about how we can help them, getting sort of content-based stuff, so editing videos and things like that. Again, to try and grow the presence. It's looking at how can we improve operating procedures, having meetings with my managers in the stores, looking at, so we've got a chap now I'm working with, so he's going to be going out and actively growing the business on my behalf. So he's been going around to the local businesses in the city centre, trying to grow the brand, trying to grow that side of it. But in order to let him do that, I then have to sort of put somewhat of a framework in place for him to do that, give him some rules of the road, although I'm quite confident he'll be able to smash it regardless. And then once that's kind of done, I'm now really focused on the franchise. So where else can we do this model? Because it works, it makes money, it makes profit, it has some great reviews. So now let's just copy and paste that in another city. So Nottingham's the next big one I'm looking at. So, and then it's where else can we take it from here, really?
Exciting times. I'm just going to quickly draw.
Yeah, sure.
So obviously you talked about like your aim move to Nottingham and stuff like that. So you was also talking about like obviously bringing someone in to do the community and work with other businesses. How do you see that relationship with other businesses?
I think before we didn't really have it as much because I was so busy basically operating the business and then buying the franchise. They probably missed that bit, but yeah, basically I went from a franchisee to the franchisor. So I bought the franchisors out basically, and what I'd said, the business in my own direction. So I spent a lot of time rebranding, just kind of gutting the whole business model out, which wasn't a bad business model at all, but I definitely feel like it needed improving. And I thought the only way to do that was to do it myself. So that was obviously took a lot of time up in that sort of 2022, 3, 4. And then the last year I've just been spending that time opening a new site. So it's only really now that I've had a chance to really look at the opportunity that's out there, because ultimately we'll always get customers. We've got a lot of regular customers, and it's fantastic for me to now see them come into our dining store and actually meet them, and they always have such great, high praise for the brand and the desserts and stuff. So I love that. But before, at our old location, we didn't really have the local business touch, just because of the location. It's an industrial area. People didn't really want desserts in the day. They wanted burgers and chips and all that stuff. So we didn't really fit that model. So we operate a lot of the time in the evening in the old store. So we'd open from sort of like 4 or 5 o'clock. So we didn't really have much business sort of presence in the area as such. We did do some local stuff. So we did stuff like Rockstar. We did like a waffle event for their staff. So we went there and did sort of 5 days of, the staff literally getting stuck in and making their own waffles. That was really exciting. And from that, it's just sort of, because of our new location, we can now we're seeing people from businesses every day, so we get to have more conversations. They get to see the brands, they get to recognise it more. They now just don't order online. They come in and they eat in the store. So we're meeting loads more people, loads more faces. So recently we've been working with it's a smokehouse that's opened up in Lincoln. I won't say too much because it's still quite new, and they're still finding their feet, and they've not done loads of marketing themselves. So we're basically working with them now. So they predominantly specialise in briskets and burgers and all that kind of good stuff. But they don't really have a dessert offering, so we've actually been working with them to make a bespoke brownie for their brand, which I'm not going to say too much about because again it's still in development and it hasn't officially rolled out yet. But from that we've gone from becoming more of a wholesale business now, which is fantastic. And it's exactly what I want to get into now because it's way more predictable. You haven't got the worst thing about hospitality in particular at the moment is you've got all your staff who are getting paid, you've got your rates, your rent, all that boring stuff. And no matter what, you've got to open and you don't know how busy you're going to be. You might be absolutely flat out or you might have a quiet night and you've got no control over that. So getting into more wholesale stuff where it's more planned and predictable, that is exactly where I want to be because then we can leverage our supply chain better. Our staff can be, busy throughout the whole shift, prepping for things and fulfilling orders. So that's where I see the juice, if you like, of business is that we can now go out and we can interact and we can collaborate now with similar stores, so in hospitality or not necessarily hospitality, maybe other brands or other big businesses that have a catering function in-house, or maybe they don't and they've got meetings or events and they need a dessert for that. But the exciting thing is that it gives them the opportunity now to almost either incentivize their own staff or their clients, their customers, to be able to produce like their own recipe. And that's what I really think is quite exciting and quite niche. Whether it's like Fat Fridays and you want to get the staff at your office to come in and enjoy these treats or whatever, or it's a special run of brownies that you're doing for a new launch of a new product you've got internally. So all those opportunities they come so much easier because we've got a better presence in town and we're active now going to start going out and seeking those opportunities. It just makes business way more fun. It makes it more fun for the staff because they're not just making the same orders every night. They're getting involved in different projects. And I think we've always spoke when I come for my haircuts about a guy called James Sinclair. He's like always been quite a big inspiration recently. And he always sort of explains it to like if the staff are just doing the same thing over and over again, they're just like it's like being at school and just repeating year 7 over and over again. They want to be doing and learning new things and learning more about the business and how things operate and why we do the things we do. So I think it's quite exciting that not only do you generate more income, but you generate sort of more satisfaction amongst your team.
I think you've always got to be pushed. Like at the end of the day, we all want to grow and we all want to improve, don't we? So it's good that you do that and get the team involved. So it looks like you've got a lot of fantastic things in motion. So obviously, I presume your aim is to get like-minded people that would like to open a franchise. So what would that person look like? How easy would that be? And what kind of cost are you looking for? If someone's got a bit of money and they want to do something different?
I think it depends on the person ultimately. So what we learned from our Doncaster franchisee is a great guy called Jack, who's, I said before about not having a business partner. For the actual franchise business, which is a separate sort of company, he's been absolutely instrumental. He's got a strong finance background. He's been really helpful in helping me hone the brand and look at it from a different lens. So, but as a franchisee, it's a tricky one because I'm not a big fan of, because the brand is still small, it's still growing, I can't go in there and say, right, this is how you do it, like no flexibility. I don't think it's, again, like I just said about the staff, the franchisees also, they've got a desire to want to innovate, try things, make mistakes. And if, like, for example, with McDonald's, like I think the Happy Meal was made by a franchisee, and it's like one of their all-time best sellers now. So great things can come if you give just people the chance, A, to fail and just to have a go. So, but that also comes with, it can be a bit messy because you still want to keep the brand and like an element of control. But at the same time, it's such a young brand. I'm quite happy for franchisees to make a few mistakes and to try some things out within reason. So I think one of the hardest things though is just finding someone. Well, there's two types of people, I think. You've got someone that has capital, just wants to invest in it, probably has a bit of a sweet tooth and just likes the idea of having a dessert business but doesn't want to actually operate it, that's absolutely fine. But again, it's then a case of finding a really good manager, someone you can trust to help you run that. Or you got the other side of the coin, is someone that, like, and this is what we've got with Jack and Doncaster, someone that is happy to roll their sleeves up, happy to, you know, be out doing delivery driving one night, and the next night they're running payroll, and then they're in the kitchen. Do you mean there's so much variety in running business? You've got to wear lots of hats. And initially, it takes time to grow. So he's been in the business now for just over 2 years, and he's just had a big holiday. So he's just been to Cyprus for 3 weeks, and that would never have happened from day one. So you've got to find someone who's prepared to sacrifice their social life for a little while, someone who's prepared to really put in the graft, because it isn't easy, and it's never going to be easy running a business in the UK. So I think it's just finding someone who's prepared to go through those first few tough years, has a good understanding of money and business, but doesn't need to be an expert by any means, because I think, you know, learning on the job is the most beneficial way. And yeah, you've got to find someone who's prepared to experience it, really. So we're open, really. Like, finding another one of myself or Jack, we know is going to be difficult, but they're out there, and I think there's people who were probably in a similar boat to me, didn't have, or are in an unfulfilling career, and they want to push on and try something different, sort of thing.
So a lot of scope then.
There's a lot of scope. And you've got to be. You can't be. You know, you've got to be open-minded, because, you know, we're also open to things that are going into existing premises. You know, because like I was saying about the smokehouse, they co-share this building with another brand, another business, and that's a really intriguing proposition. Of, well, we know staff and rents and rates are expensive, so can we look at like a model, you know, like a Subway, where it goes into a petrol station, and then it can take that pressure off running and having the overheads to yourself? Can it go into a kiosk model? You know, there's so much scope to go into it. So, yeah.
Do you see that as a future model of businesses? Because I know in our industry, the chair rental has gone through the roof, and you've got collaboratively used spaces. We've even seen the hairdressers have cafes, and arguably cafes with desserts thing. Do you see that as a future for a lot of places where maybe you provide the desserts and they have a counter or a...
I think so, yeah. I think it's about what I used to be called was an omni-channel experience. So whether you're at home and you just want a dessert delivery, if you're in town you want to walk in and grab a coffee, if you're a B2B scenario and you literally have got a big event and you want, you know, 2,000 brownies making, whatever, I don't think it matters how, you know, you define yourself. I think it matters that you're flexible and you're willing to, within reason, just make it work. So, but in terms of like the future, I guess I always look at, like, again, look at McDonald's as like the ultimate. They are the ultimate small business, really, the ultimate franchise. They're going down like the heavy tech route. So you look at America, they've got, you know, they've got stores where there's barely any staff in them now, where you've literally just got, you know, machines making this food. And I don't know if that's the right direction personally, because I think then you just take the enjoyment out of food and experience it with people. We've got kiosks in our store now, and you'll still get customers come in, they don't want to use them, and that's absolutely fine, because it solves a need for us in terms of it, you know, it streamlines our operation, our ordering process. It's quicker, it upsells, that's great. But I think you've got customers that still want to talk and interact with a human being. So I think the future is uncertain, and how that develops and what it looks like. Like, I want drone delivery all day long from a business perspective. Like, the idea of just putting our food in the drone and going across Lincoln, fantastic, because traffic here is bloody awful. But then I also know, like, one of our biggest things is like we employ our own drivers. They come to your door, they put the cream on the milkshake, so it's all fresh. It's not just shoved in a bag next to a Five Guys order, which is being just delivered by a Just Eat driver, for example. So we take pride in giving that service, and I think if anything, that's what's going to differentiate businesses in the future. People that are prepared to do the hard task, so employ the staff, have a physical location, provide that service. I think that's going to be the game changer, rather than looking like every other business and just being AI driven and fully automated. So it's a hard question to answer.
So do you think, like, picking up on that last little bit, do you feel like businesses going back to basics are the ones that are going to succeed, employing, having accountability, having ownership, than these third party businesses?
I think possibly, yeah. I think when I look at all the chains, so like I look at Starbucks, you look at McDonald's, yeah, they've got fantastic operating procedures, they're cash rich, but do they have that kind of edge now? Which I think when you look on like your TikTok, Instagram, are they all, especially with a lot of their marketing now being done by AI, are they just all starting to look the same? Whereas you go to a local, I mean, I say this as we're trying to grow a franchise here, but that store can still have a really local, community-based feel to it, especially if the franchisee and the owner is still present and part of it, which is something you'll never get in a big chain. It's just run by managers who don't really care. So it's a tough question to answer. It really is. I think, again, you need to have a mixture of both. You need to be able to streamline your processes. You need to be able to have a really smart way of operating in a cost-efficient way, but still present yourself to the customer as that local business, which isn't just the same as everybody else. So just how do you differentiate yourself, I think ultimately is the way you will survive and thrive.
Perfect. So where do you see yourself in the next 3 to 5 years?
I think having grown, so again, we've relocated now, we've got our store, it's how I want it, more or less. It's growing, it's doing what it should be doing. So it's now just, like we touched on earlier on, so looking at how we interact with local businesses, how can we grow that, again, the whole community feel and all that. That's important. And I think replicating like an ecosystem for a new franchisee, so it's not just a store, you're not just there to sell desserts. You can be doing a whole host of other things to grow your revenue and therefore your freedom. So we want our franchisees to work on their business, and not just operating it all the time. So again, still having a presence there, absolutely, because that's important. But I think having like a physical location, I think is important, as well as an e-commerce thing for customers, an events side of the business for B2B, as well as just getting your basics right. So, your in-store customers, your marketplaces, your Just Eat, Uber delivery, they will still be a thing. But looking outside that box and be able to offer so many different funnels, and at the heart of it is desserts, ultimately. So multiple franchisees doing that model, but slowly. I don't see a case of, I want to have 20 in 10 years' time, because I don't think that's sustainable. And I've seen a few business models fail because they've grown too quickly. So I think stepping in the right direction, but doing it with purpose at the right time.
So that sounds like a good plan. I like the fact, like, if you plan for, I don't believe in like focus at 10 and you'll get 10 and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think what you do is brilliant. Obviously, we do talk a lot. So you're a very health conscious person. Mm-hmm. Health and fitness is massive for you. Do you see the desserts business getting or having more health fear options? Do you see is reducing calories?
Reducing sugar for me is that's a really, really good question, because I find we've seen more and more, obviously, young generation coming through really, really health conscious. And I think it's a really good thing personally, because I again, yes, I own a dessert shop, but I am like super into my health, my fitness, not just working out, but like nutrition in particular, and lots of the crap that's in food these days, and especially processed food, trying to get away from that is the hot topic now. It does concern me as a dessert owner, because it's, on one hand, I want to grow the revenue, I want to grow the business. On the other hand, I look at it like, will desserts and sugar be the smoking, what smoking was 30 years ago? You don't really see cigarettes, and it's just not a thing anymore, because the young people don't want it, and rightly so. Will sugar go down the same route? That is my biggest fear at heart. Ultimately, I'm spending all this time growing a brand, perfecting it and growing it and all the rest of it. Is it all going to be for nothing if, sugar is taxed and, it just all gets taken away from us? Because we keep treats in the name for a reason. And I'm a health conscious guy, but I don't, when I go out for a meal to treat myself, which you absolutely should, I don't care how much sugar or how much calories is in that meal, because I'm there to enjoy it with people I love. I'm not there to go, ooh, doesn't quite hit my macros. So for me, I don't think it's a big issue as long as we keep that and we keep it as a treat. However, I'm definitely keen on experimenting, doing the R&D based on getting less sugar in some of our options, because not everyone wants it and not everyone is health conscious, and that's fine. Especially if it's a treat, it can be enjoyed responsibly. Especially if you've got an active lifestyle, you can absolutely enjoy it within reason. But I think more than ever, I've got to be conscious about that and what it looks like, and not just being a blockbuster and turning a blind eye to Netflix sort of thing. Like, that is a big thing for us, absolutely, and there is no getting away from it. And we've had customers recently sort of say, great food, love it, great reviews and stuff like that, but it could have been improved if it had nutrition information. And it's in black and white, it's there, it isn't going to go away. So we have to accept it, and we have to work with it and innovate. So yeah, it's exciting, but I have to be really, really conscious about that for sure.
But at least you are, and that's the whole point of view. Because obviously we do see a lot of things within the food industry, but basically they are poisoners, and they know they are, and they do nothing about it. So at least somebody who's in the space, and you do think about that it's nice to know. So fair play with you. Well, we've come to the end of it anyway today. It's been an absolute pleasure, loads of insights, and I just want to thank you again for your time and the effort today.
Yeah, cheers guys, appreciate it.
Well, Adam certainly knows how to fill the space. It was great to have him today. So many insights into what he's doing, what he's done, how far he's come. It's always a pleasure to talk business with Adam. And I want to wish him all the best for the future. He has so many options. Also if you've got a spare bit of money and you want to invest and become a franchisee in a great cake shop, please reach out to Adam. Anyway, that's us for this podcast. Hopefully see you next week on the next one.